Hey everybody, welcome back to Window to Hollywood. Eugene and I are so excited to be joined by our friend, Laurie Burke,
Yay.
actor, voiceover coach, the best in the business as far as I'm concerned, and founder of Virtual Voiceover. Laurie as the original voice of Google. That's really cool.
That's
And a seasoned
awesome.
actor. Laurie's voice has been heard by millions and her presence felt in over 100 million homes globally. Her 20-year career spans a multitude of roles, from TV hosting to singing, underpinned by a rich family heritage in music. Laurie represents the epitome of the multi-talented artist, seamlessly blending voiceover mastery with her dynamic on-screen and stage performances. Laurie, there's so much more to tell about you, but that's just a little something. So honored that you're here. Thank you for joining us
Thank
and
you.
Wow, thank you
spending
so
the
much.
time. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I can you enter before me anytime I enter a room and give that speech, because I think that would make me feel fantastic every time I go out of the house. But
There's
thank
so
you
much
so
more to
much.
say about you too.
No,
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be here, and I love you guys. You're wonderful. So
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it. This is very fun.
Yeah. So Eugene, I don't know if you know this, but Laurie, we connected some years ago when we were both I was doing the acting videos for Backstage and Laurie was doing the VO videos. And for actors that don't know, there are a treasure trove of videos on
Yeah.
YouTube that Laurie has done on VO. You gotta check them out. We did a lot of videos around that time, and they're still up there. So that's how we connected. And I remember our first conversation. We were in Palm Springs. It was pandemic, but you've come to teach. You've coached some of our actors. We've done workshops and events, and you are so great, and just so like in the spirit of fun and kind and loving, and you actually help actors through things in such a beautiful way. So I kind of maybe start the conversation where we had talked about a little earlier, is that one of the things that you came to do for our studio is voiceover for actors. And there may be actors who are going through training or trained who are wondering, well, what you know what can I learn about voiceover that I might not have learned as an actor? I'd love to talk about that, but also just to kind of ask you about, like, what's your approach and what's your philosophy. We connect on so many amazing levels. If you could tell us a little bit about your work and what you specifically do, because it's not just voiceover for actors.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you. First of all, thank you again for the beautiful, kind words. I really appreciate it. I think I loved connecting with you. We just had such the same kind of ideology about teaching and
Yeah.
supportiveness, and I think it's so much. It takes so much for people to get into this business as a creative, whether you're going to be on screen, on stage, recording into a microphone, all of the above, dancing. And I think it's so important to have people that are supportive, that remember how it is starting out, that remember how it is learning, and really being proud of learning your craft and then delivering on it and getting hired for it and then getting the kudos. So thank you so much. I love being a part of this. I For me, my journey began. My degree was in broadcast communication, so I kind of have a little bit already
Wow.
there that was started out. But then I became a flight attendant. I have a million jobs, et cetera, et cetera, like probably many other actors and creatives out there. And the story goes like this. So I think it's an important story. I was working in sales. I kind of wasn't really quite doing what I knew I loved or what I had studied or whatever. And I think I was afraid, basically. And my way to combat fear is to learn and study. So there was a time where I was working in sales. Some weird things were happening in my body, like my hands were going cold, my feet were going cold. Not really, I was too young to have any of this stuff happen. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, I don't know what's wrong with you, but there's something going on. How is your work? And I said, oh, everything's fine. And a
Mm.
tear went down my face.
Mm.
And clearly I was not doing what I knew I wanted to do in the creativity. And that changed my life. He said, look, I don't want to tell you what to do, but you're too young for this. go forth and do something else, basically. And so I did. And I made my demo. I studied first voiceover, just like many of my students did. This is why I teach what I've been through. That is what I teach. I studied, I made a demo, I shopped it around. That people can get on my website if they want to know the things I've been lucky enough to do in the last 20 years of my career. But it was that whole step of studying, owning it, learning how to do it, and then going on. And what happened was I did a lot of stage musicals. I'm a singer as well, and voiceover. And I was again the original voice of Google. It's a whole other story. And then that I just kept going. So I just kind of did this multi-creative dance, which I know many people are. The more things that you can do that you love and then get hired to do, I mean, that's a rich life right there. That is just, that's the goal, in my opinion, is to be able to do what you love, but especially express things with your voice. So voiceover kind of started it and also always was woven through it. At the same time, I was a TV host. I still did voiceover. I was, acting in films and TV. I was still doing voiceover. And when we shut down, that is when I believe there was a really big time in our industry where the people that really studied voiceover were going to soar. The people that didn't, probably not. And I feel that that's where we're at, again, even more so with AI and things like that. And the actors' journey to voiceover, many of them, they're wonderful actors. And I've got friends that are producers on, American Dad and Family Guy and things like that. And they had to bring people in that were actors that couldn't do voiceover. And I had this discussion with one of my best friends. It's a producer, and said, what's happening? She said, I don't know. They don't know how to read voiceover in a natural way, but they're great actors. What's the disconnect? Right? And I started really, really honing in on that and coming up with my own method of for anyone, actually, not just actors, but especially for actors, that they can rely on time in and time out to get to that place that they need to deliver a very comfortable and believable voiceover, doing whatever it is, whether it's narration, whether it's animation, commercial, all of these things. So I've been very fortunate in that, but it's really, I developed what I teach by learning what my students need on an ongoing basis. So it's been years, and then that I've been developing this and working with my method, and it's proven to be over and over again. I've got a couple really star students that have gone on to record for Star Wars and Pixar,
wow, cool.
and you name it. They're great. I won't take the credit for them because they're wonderful, wonderful, talented people. But I think that they needed some really good, foundational notes to fall back on when they're delivering voiceover. So that's where I come from, and it's fun, and it's really fun.
That was what I just made the note about fun. It's like maybe a question for now or later, but for me, fun is the great actors know what great acting feels like, and fun is at the top of that list. And we will we'll have a website link for you at the bottom of this video when it gets produced. That's so important. What is the role of fun, in your work? Because obviously it is. I mean, knowing you, where does fun play in?
Well, I think the thing about voiceover that is a little different than on-screen acting is that you literally can be anyone. I mean, on-screen acting, you can, there's a lot we could do with wardrobe and makeup and hair and so that, but you can be anyone with voiceover. And that means any age. I just played someone in my 80s, or I've played a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old. Any sort of character things that you want to add in, you can do. Your voice really tells a story of what's going on, and you're serving whoever's hiring you, unless you're creating it yourself. You're delivering that story. It's not about you at all. It's all about the story. It's all about what's being done. And there are different ways to communicate with your voice. I think it's and you could do it for the rest of your life, right? You can do on screen. I just saw Hal Linden and Sally Struthers. No one will probably know who that is if they're, below a certain age. but All in the Family and Barney Miller. And he's 92 years old, and he just did a screen. He just did. I
Wow.
just saw him in a play, but he was reading. He was reading, which great, But he read it so well, and this is something to do with like voiceover that I didn't even realize. I forgot that he was reading a script in front of him on
Oh,
stage.
cool.
He did it so well, and that's what you want. You want the voice to be telling the story, so much so that you're not distracted by what's on the camera, what you're looking at. It's just the story, So in that, I think it's so fun. You really have the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
And you could take it
Wow.
into in playing with your kids. You could do it at parties. You could you take this with you everywhere and bring the joy. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Like, is there like the top three things that actors get caught up on, which you kind of tweak? Like the top three things, oh,
a good
okay,
one.
no, it's just an easy tweak. You're
Yes.
thinking this way, kind of. If there's a top three, kind of.
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, there's a lot, but I'll bring I worked with one of my friends, Dorian, who's amazing. He went on to do great things. He was a wonderful actor. He just couldn't. There was something about reading the page, and I think it's because depending on where you're, I studied in Europe for acting, and there's a lot of
Studied
different.
at RADA. Yeah.
I
that was
did.
one
I
of the
studied at
places I
RADA.
studied
Yeah.
at. Yeah.
Very lucky. Yeah. So, but there's a lot of different methods, right? But most of the time we're taught, okay, just get off book as quickly as you can, right? Get off book, read it, memorize. This is not memorizing.
Mm.
This is not memorizing. You have to shut that off. You're not memorizing. You're doing something, you're using that. Another thing, so that part of your brain that we initially go to as actors, the minute you get an audition, right? You read it over and you're like, all right, I have to memorize this. I got to do this. Where are the points? It's a completely different way. You have the script there all the time. That being said, you have to look at those words and you have to make those words sound like they're coming out of your mouth to your friend. Very conversational. If I say one word over and over again to my students, it's conversational. That is going nowhere. That is the direction that we always have.
So it's like that actor probably, when he usually studies or when
Yeah.
he usually works on a script and he goes off book, it's to set him free, right? As an
Right.
actor.
Right.
But when there's a script somewhere, he doesn't set free. So he has to understand how he can set him free without memorizing the lines, with having the script right there in front of him. And then obviously, when you actually shoot the stuff, it's in a studio and you have these beep things that pop up where, it's a whole
Yes.
different world.
Well, and that's another thing is that, and yeah, that is a great way to put it. That's a great way to put it. You're already, if you have the method in place, you're already going to set yourself free. I will say this. I just want to say this unequivocally. I'm so much of a better actor for doing this in voiceover. I mean, it's helped my acting career make decisions like that. So that's another thing. You make decisions very quickly.
Yeah.
It's not like you make a decision
Great.
and then you play that character on the stage for 3 months or whatever it is. You're making you develop this skill where you can change very, very quickly, and you make that decision very quickly and commit to it very quickly. And that's something that really, that muscle is so useful even on camera. So that's another thing, to note. And that you first embody that character, but then you may change it to another character, and the direction is so immediate. And I like how you said that, how you're in the studio and you see the beep, right? That's one type of voiceover, right? Yeah, that's one thing. That's typically if you're looping or if you're doing ADR or something. But even if you're not, let's say, and I remember the first voiceover I did in a studio, everyone's looking at me. You're getting paid very good money. All you have is you're looking at the studio engineer who you just met, and you've got people in your earphones telling you, okay, do this. I mean, talk about nerves. And the first thing to go is your voice, right? Because you're right. So that's why, I said you need to develop a way to get yourself very relaxed and in it, and kind of like a moldable piece of clay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to really relax. I think that's a lot of it. The mindset is so important. But once you get that, you translate that over onto your on screen. I was in casting too. I worked in casting as well, and you can really tell the difference between people that have really developed their skills and can just go
Yeah.
take a direction and just fly. I'm sure you guys have seen that so many times.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, it's so interesting because, every time, like, I mean, even with a regular film or
Mhm.
not even a voiceover or whatever it is, um, it all comes out in the voice, whichever way.
Mm.
Like when I'm shooting on a film set, I would usually go to the sound guy
Mm.
and go, I feel I'm off today somehow. And then he's like, yeah, there's something, what's going on? It's one of those days when, I don't know, something's off and I'm not in the character fully or something. I forgot that something was weird that day for
Yeah.
me. But the sound guy picked it up right away. And then
Yeah.
the shot after that, he said, yeah, okay. So I said, give me 5-10 minutes. And then I went back into it, and then, okay, let's go. And then I got it, and then I looked at the sound guy, and the sound guy's like, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
sound and the voice, it all is so honest in a way, from my experience. So it's like, but it's interesting because it's all what you're saying right now. To concentrate. I mean, to be able to commit to that idea, or when it changes, you go for it, and then there's, it's all the same in a way. With acting on film, off film, in the studio with voiceover, everything.
Yeah.
It's committing to that scene, to that character, and then just set yourself free.
100%. But now, how are you going to do that without having somebody to play off? So you're the, you're kind of, especially when you're auditioning, you're kind of, you're kind of writing the story, directing the story, being in the story, all in
Totally.
once. And then you have to make those decisions of what are the best ones
Yeah.
to send in that will get, this is where the training comes in, and you're absolutely right in the fact of when you're off. And I think it's also a different order because you get the description of what the voice is like first, usually in the breakdown, right? Some of us actors think, well, we start with our shoes, we start with our wardrobe, right? We all have our things after training of what you start with and then build on. So it's a different kind of order. I just did I was lucky enough, and I can't say what it is right now, but I was lucky enough to I played an on-camera FBI agent, right? Being me and my age. And then I also, in the same vehicle, in the same film, I play an animated 80-something-year-old woman.
Oh,
That's
wow.
awesome.
A dream come
awesome.
true for me.
So
but,
cool, Laurie.
But
Congratulations.
I noticed that, I had to think a little bit about it. One, again, you're playing opposite something and you're getting that reaction, right? When people say acting is reacting. Another famous quote, at least my favorite quote pretty much of all time, by Daniel Day-Lewis is, "The voice is a fingerprint of the soul." And what that means, which you already know what it means, but to me is that, when people first come to me, or they always say, is my voice good? Do I have a good voice? Who's to say who has a good voice? We all have a good voice. We all have beautiful voices. Whether you have a speech impediment, Barbara Walters had a speech impediment. There's a lot of famous people that have these distinctive voices, and that's what made them special. That's what made them them. So it's really working with your strengths and being creative. And there's a lot of different fields in voiceover as well. It doesn't just have to be animation or just commercial.
Yeah, I just recently worked on that game.
Oh, the video game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, and the Japanese version, the actual game, which is made in Japanese, my friend's playing the actual character, my best friend in Japan. And then the audition came, and then I was like, oh my God, because there's a photo of the character, which is my friend.
Yeah.
So I called him right away. And then I was like, there's going to be an English version. I think I'm going to audition for it.
Yes.
And I ended up doing it. But it was a whole different way of shooting with because it's a game, and then there's scenes of this I guess the characters go in the game, they go to karaoke or something,
Mm-hmm.
and he has to cheer the player up, I guess, going go
Mhm.
go go. So I have to do that too. So it's like completely different kind
But
of.
you know the guy, you have all this history, so I would say there's so much work you probably didn't have to do because of the history of
Yeah.
just like knowing
Yeah.
the guy. Yeah.
Right. So that
Yeah.
but what a great practice of knowing, oh, that really helped me. How do I get there when I don't know the guy?
Yeah.
How do I get there quickly? There's a lot more exertions in video games, as you know. It's more of there's a lot more of
Yeah.
those than we would naturally have, obviously, in a
I
commercial.
did all those.
Yeah.
All that.
And how to do that, and then the placement of the microphone. I mean, depending on if you go, nowadays we have so many. We have our home studios, which I've been building for 20 years. Even for Google, I had my own home studio. I built myself, before all of this.
Wow.
And it's really important that you get to know your surrounding in that to where you feel very comfortable. When you go into a studio, which you probably did, right?
Yes.
Did you get to see it also visually? Sometimes you do,
Yeah.
sometimes you don't. Okay.
And
Sometimes you
I
do,
was
sometimes you
able
don't.
to see
Yeah.
it in Japan. I mean, the actual in Japanese.
Yeah.
So I would hear my friend's voice. And I'd be like, oh, he's a bit actually he's a bit stiff in this scene.
No.
That's great though. That is, I mean, it's such a joy to work with people, and especially voiceover, because a lot of times that's another thing is, you're alone a lot,
Yeah.
but you're alone a lot with all these full, rich characters and things that you could, create in your mind. So I love it, but it's a special type of person, that really enjoys that, and because it's a delayed response, as we know already as actors, right? You shoot something and a year later you're like, that was great. There's something finally comes
Yeah.
out. And this is also like that, but I love doing it so much. And I hope that my students do too. I love just acting for that day and being in that moment and that character. And believe me when I say the amount of characters you could play are just endless.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. That's a really big difference.
Wow. Yeah.
Besides just being on screen.
Two questions I have here. Laurie,
Yeah.
in our work, it's I always say the personality is 90% of the performance. We are not. We are playing other characters, but we can't create a humanity, a being, a soul that's more infinite, beautiful, and interesting than ourselves. And it's always so terrific when an actor is able to tune their instrument to be able to bring their personality out in their voice. It was one of the first times I had ever met Zoe Deschanel many years ago. She came into a class, and it was like the first thing that hit me was her voice. And I don't think she had any special training, but for actors, what do you recommend, or what's your feeling for personality and getting the body and a voice in a way to get that out, or the personality's role in the performance?
That's a great question, and I think she does have a beautiful voice. She's a singer as well. See,
That's true.
what I really want to convey even more is that nothing's ever wasted that you've studied, and you might as well do all of the things and enjoy all of these different ways of being creative and delivering. You might as well. Why limit yourself and just learn how to do everything? I think the more that we go against our natural voice, to your point, Joseph, because that is what you convey as well, is like bring you to the role, right? I've seen the beautiful way that you coach.
Part of you, is your voice, and sometimes for some reason a person's personality through their voice is kind of shut out because of various reasons. Are there exercises? I remember we did this link letter approach many years ago at NYU, but it felt borderline torturous and abusive. And it was like, but I like what you said is that everything that you've done makes a difference. So are there certain ways to try to bring out that soul uniqueness? What kind of things do you do?
100%. Again, it's going to start. I coach in a very acting level. I use those fundamentals. So I
Yeah.
really want it because I think people can hear it when it's fake. Anybody can go like this.
Oh
That's
yeah.
not. It's kind of soulless, right? But if I took it and I thought, okay, let's say I'm saying, let's say I say, um, I'm very excited to do this podcast. Okay, that was me saying, I'm very excited to do this podcast. I really am, right? That's me saying that because I
Yes.
am,
Yes.
truly. Now, if I wanted to get into a different style of voice, and I'm not even changing my voice that much, but I'm doing the delivery a little different. Maybe I am now creating in my mind a different situation of maybe this is my 50th podcast I've done
Yeah.
in the day today, and I'm yeah I'm really excited to do this podcast. That's going to sound different
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
put myself in that.
Yeah.
So I say, let the emotions guide you. You just need to know how to get there quicker so that then you could try something else. And
Yes.
because the scariest thing for a new voiceover artist, and I remember all this, you guys, is when they say, can you give us something different? And they go, oh crap. Because you're on the spot. Again, you have all these people looking at you, you've got people in your ears, and you're like, so my wish is that I give people the tools to where they go, absolutely, and they go directly into something else. So there's quicker ways to get there. It's a little involved, so I can't go into it in this
Yeah.
podcast, but they're not hard. It's just practice.
Sure.
And you could go directly into it. And so again, I think we're aligned in that. It starts with the feeling and putting yourself in that moment to do
Beautiful.
it. So, yeah.
So much, I love this Seth Godin quote where he says, effort isn't the point, impact is. If you solve a problem in seconds, you've created art. And if you've moved 10,000 pounds of granite, sorry for your calluses, but you haven't made art. And, there's so much shit that one has to kick off their shoulder from training or excessive training or effort-based training, because that was the thing at NYU. It was like you go through all of these like very effortful, rigorous opera technique, Linklater, and it was just, it was like a slog. And it was like, you know what? When you are under the influence of fun, when you are lit up, when you're doing something that is undeniably amazing, your voice is coming out. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there you are. So it's just a good check on, is something fun? Does it feel like it's effortful? And to try to like get stuff off your plate, that's that's not useful. That just keeps making you think that you're not there yet, whether it's voice or acting.
Absolutely. I think that you're so spot on. I think you're absolutely right. And it should be fun. It should be fun. Now, I've done a lot of tech voiceovers where I have no idea what I'm talking about because I was so much my career was in Silicon Valley as well. But I still had fun doing it because I kind of put my mindset in that I did know what I was talking about with these 15 syllable words that you have to look up, So there's a little bit of a give and take in there. But I think, if you approach it in a way that is fun and that you let it go and that you're really serving whatever story it is. I don't care if I'm telling you how to, put in your contact lenses, right? Which, by the way, is a thing to tell someone how to put in your contact lenses. It's still fun because guess what? I'm helping somebody put in their contact lenses, and I'm doing it in a way that would hopefully be a friend that would help you put in your contact lenses. So, it's not just words on paper, and it is. I love it. One day I can do, I'll probably do 15 different characters. I do believe, to your point, I think you can have that I don't want to say over taught, but like, there's too many things that you're supposed to. I don't think it should be that way. I developed one method that'll work on every single kind of voiceover. I don't care what kind of voiceover you're doing.
That's great, Laurie.
One method, because I was tired of my students saying, oh, I'm going and I'm going to study IVR or whatever. And I thought, well, geez, that's what I did. Like, I've not done that a million times. What is there to study with that? Right. My thing is have a method that makes it fun and easy and something that you could take with you and really build on. And that's my wish.
Phenomenal.
That is my wish. So That's how I live. And I have fun, so
Wh-
we'll see. Yeah.
Why should this is like to actors. Why should actors who may not have thought about voiceover, cared about it, why now should they maybe consider it? You had mentioned also this is a whole other source of income for actors as well too. But Laurie, why now should actors maybe take a look at voiceover who hadn't? I know some actors, obviously it's okay if you don't want to do commercials, you don't have to do commercials. But voiceover isn't just commercials. I think a lot of,
Yeah.
why should actors take another look at it, do you think?
Yeah. Okay. So that is a great question as well. There's two things. One thing is our state of the world today, right? When we shut down, that's when everybody knew what a pop filter was. All of a sudden, everybody was getting to voiceover because the actors weren't going to be on camera. But what happened was, such an influx. There was such a divide between the people that actually studied and the people that didn't study or knew what they were doing or didn't know what they were doing. So it kind of, the cream rose to the top, right? That were really taking this seriously, building their home studios, this and that. I think that's only going to further with the AI movement happening with, with voices. The people that are maybe they're not spending a lot of money, they're creating their own commercials, they're going to go with the canned AI, which, as you know, my head wants to pop off every time I hear that because it's just so soulless. I automatically don't even like the product, honestly, right?
Yeah.
But when you hear somebody that is trained, and I think this is just going to be a bigger and bigger divide. Somebody that's an actor, the people are going to want to hire someone that's an actor that can really bring that life and that feeling to their commercial or their animation or their whatever. And on this second tone, I want to tell you, yes, it can supplement your income tenfold, if not more. For example, I got a job, I got a commercial doing for this supermarket called Rayleigh's. We had like 3 commercials for it. And I played the mom. I've been playing the mom for 20 years. I don't know how old these kids are at this point, but anyway, so I've been playing the mom. And as I was, doing one of the commercials with a dog and kids, I was talking, and there was, of course they had the whole other room full of the executives that flew in. And I mean, it's a big commercial.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I'm a voiceover artist. I have my studio, blah, 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 blah. Well, wouldn't you know, the next week after I filmed that, they called my agent and said, oh, she mentioned she was a voiceover artist. We love her character that she played in these commercials. We want to sign her for a year contract and every week come in and do a voiceover for our supermarket. I cried when I got that. I was like, oh my gosh, an ongoing for an actor, right, thing that you can do. I went in once a week for about 15 minutes. That would not have happened if I, A, did not mention that I was a voiceover artist, B, did not feel that I was a voiceover artist and could deliver, right? Yeah. And C, just happened to be in that world, in that acting creative environment, to be very confident about what I was doing, the skills that I can bring to it, and I developed this character. So for anyone that's an actor who isn't doing or pursuing voiceover, unless they really don't like it, I wouldn't want anybody to, if they don't like being alone or they don't like going to a studio, whatever your fear is, why not?
Yeah.
Why not add that to it? And it's going to make you a better actor.
Yeah.
It's going to increase your acting skills. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, no,
not too much about me. It's just that these, these happen to me. That's why I teach. These things actually happen to me, and I found what really helped and what didn't.
I'm like imagining part 2s and part 3s. So there's so many. This is really something that could go on and on. We always say in the acting, the difference between good and great is this little bit extra, and it's not a pushing thing. It's this little bit extra, and it's the ability to obviously bring yourself to it, but it's being emotionally lit up on a clear emotional opinion. It's having an emotional attitude or an opinion. What stands out in auditions on the acting side, as I know you know, is the actors that are willing to do the thing that nobody else was willing to do, which was to let go of their obligation, to not obey the text, and to really tunnel through to figure out what's going on underneath the sheets of the piece. What do you mean versus what you say? Laurie, what is the difference between good and great, would you say, for voiceover? What's the difference between, I know oftentimes it's a numbers game, but between a booking and a callback to a, a booking? How could, if there is such a way to quantify it?
Sure. The difference between those two, I think, another thing that you brought up that is a good difference going back to Eugene's question before too, one of the 3 tips, how you said, let the words go. We don't let the words go. So it's a different mindset and it's a different way of looking at it, because your words, you don't change the words unless they let you. You can't. In acting, yes, let the stage direction go. Oh no, not only do you not let the stage direction go in voiceover, that's what you study, is what they're telling you. They're telling you what the situation is. They might tell you what the video is, what the commercial is, what the shot is. You take those in and consider it. So there's a big difference between that and on-camera acting, because I agree with everything that you're saying on the other way. The difference is going to be, are you going to take the chances just like you do on camera? And are you real and authentic? I can't stress that enough. It's the conversational. How you get there is the work. How you get there. But the work is also fun on how you get there, because you let your imagination run wild. And I've seen it 1,000 times with my students. They're like, at first, they're kind of timid. They go exactly where the direction is, but they're not using their own creativity in their own mind. How I read something is going to be different how you read something.
Yeah.
And we need to really, really celebrate that. And then come from a different place. And because we have all these pieces in ourselves, right? We're actors, we're creatives. Totally. So we get to actually use them as much as we want in voiceover, and to really let that free. Let whatever it is that you are free, and don't be afraid to try these different voices. I think that's another thing, is they have a fear of judgment, as we do on camera as well. It's a little bit different in your vocality because you hear it right away.
Yeah.
But try it.
Laurie, this is why I love you. You make it accessible for everybody, and you cut out all this this bullshit that you need to do. It's like Jason Bateman always says, actors, you're one job away from something really big. But I love how you make it fun, and I love how you make it simple. Eugene, wouldn't it be fun to have Laurie come into PAA Asia to work with Japanese actors sometime?
Yeah, that'd be great.
VO work.
That'd be
that
great.
would be so fun, Laurie, if you would want to do that.
You'll come anytime.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love that. I would absolutely. I love you too, both of you. I mean, just both of you and your bodies of work and what you do for the community, especially, and bringing everyone together. And I think it's really important to support actors and creatives, and to really, I think if you're creative every day, you're happy every day. And I think if you believe that and you live that, you'll never have a regret. You just go for it, So I appreciate both of you.
Thank you, Laurie. That's so beautiful. If you're creative every day, you're happy every day. That's awesome. I love that one.
Thank you.
You were talking about a little earlier before we started about the whole AI thing. Was there something that you haven't said that you think is important for actors to know with AI, or do you feel like we've kind of covered it? Because I felt that there was maybe another angle we were talking about earlier in reference to AI, which is important.
What I would say, it's very easy for us as creatives, and I do, I always say too, we as creatives have a thinner skin than most, and that's what makes us good creatives, because we could really take things in and use them, and we have empathy and really dive into a character. Because of that, sometimes we might hear some negative things. AI is going to take over all the acting. AI is going to take over all the voiceover. AI is going to...
Right.
Who says? Come on. I mean, that's not true. My brother, who's a professional drummer and just also a sound guy and everything, he said, yeah, we thought that when drum machines came in. But guess what? They're still live drummers. Right. They're still going on. People still want this. And even so, they're almost more coveted. It's almost more like, oh, this person really worked a lot and knows what they're doing. So I think there's going to be a greater divide. And I think that the actors that study voiceover are going to be the ones that are going to get those bigger roles, those bigger things, and let them have the little ones that aren't going to use, that don't value the human voice, that don't see that that connects. I think if I'm listening to a commercial, again, I'm so turned off by those kind of voices, and I can tell the difference. They're not there yet. They're not even close yet. I can tell the difference. If you're going to tell me that someone like, Morgan Freeman, you know, when he's being directed and his pauses and the way they communicates, if that doesn't make you feel something, you're probably dead inside and you can't emulate that. I don't care what they do. You really
Yeah.
can't. So my advice would be, don't listen to all these naysayers about, yes, the industry's changing. You pivot with it a little bit, but just
Right.
become the best that you can in it.
Yeah.
And you'll still work, and you'll still work well. So you can make your mark that way.
I think people want to feel things. That's why we do all this. We do it to feel something, and we listen and watch things to feel something. And I think for folks that might not be able to tell an AI from a person, I think it's like goes back to the whole trust how you feel. That's how something's working in acting. But it's a good time for actors to do voiceover, is what you were saying earlier, as well too.
That too, and I think that advertiser. I think it's going to depend on the advertisers and things like that. But I think truly the big guys that really know how to connect with people, and that's what makes people buy products. I mean, that's basically usually why you're being hired, right? They also might ask you to improv. Right. I have been, obviously I've improv'd also during voiceover. That's a skill that you get by acting. Not everyone's going to be good at that.
That's right.
So there's that too. Right. So I just think I'm so grateful for this. Well, I'm grateful for this opportunity to talk to you guys, but also just to be a part of this community, because I do think that together we're creating some really, we could create a beautiful world.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's say Eugene was because Eugene's getting over a little bit of a cold, as we can see, and it's like, no, I'm just being silly. Like, if Eugene had to do a voiceover right now, my God, what would you do? What do you do when you get sick and you got a cold and you got to, do you just not show up for work that day? Do you show up and
I never not
take
show
something?
up. I mean, I'm not that type of person. I'm always
Yeah.
showing up. For me,
Yeah.
Eugene, and this is only if anybody else watches this, of course, if you have your own medication, I'm not a doctor or anything like that, so nothing that would screw with this, but grapefruit seed extract is what I usually take. Again, it could mess with some medication, stuff like that, so nobody do that unless you're completely free and you know that it's okay. It's the worst tasting thing I've ever tasted in my life. It's horrible. This is where I was doing a musical and I was the lead and I was singing all these like solo songs, and I couldn't talk. I literally had no voice. So I said, okay, number one, shut up, stop talking. I really am very big on vocal health as a singer as well, and trained in that way because it's your moneymaker. You have to take it seriously. But number two, you gargle with grapefruit seed extract that you get at the store, and then you swallow it. It's horrible. And all I kept saying is, I'm suffering for my art. It's liquid.
Okay.
And it has like a big GSC on it. Anyway, that's something that I do, Eugene. And then you gargle and you swallow and stop talking and don't whisper. People think whispering's better. It's not. That's harder on your vocal cords. So just, I have more, but those are the top two that I do.
I'm taking notes.
I was advised after the game, because I had to scream and this and that. And my voice was kind of like, ew. They gave me this, I think it was Taiwanese. It's this liquid, you put it on a teaspoon and you just, it's not that bad. No, you just lick it and keep it in your throat for as long as you can.
Yeah, and it's probably horrible, right? I mean, the thing is, people do things, and singers would do this too, like to numb their vocal cords, or close. That's a natural way to do it. I advise against that, because if you numb it, you really can't also tell if you're hurting it more. And you have to look at the long game here. And I have a whole story on that. We don't need to get into it now, about when I lost my voice, and it was really a wake up call. I was doing too much. I was, on camera, hosting TV, and then I was voiceover and singing at night. And I was like, okay, something, and I had a cold. And it's when you have a cold that you're most vulnerable. So that's where I would say, keep it like this. That's another thing, where you pitch your voice.
Okay.
Yes. And very relaxed. You have to realize that is something that's, it's also for acting on stage and things like that. You know that. Miraculously though, and I've been there before, it always comes back when I need it. My skills,
It
you know
does.
that you could be
It
sick as a
does.
dog, but you'll do a performance because you're in a play.
Yeah.
You got to do
Yep,
it.
yep, yep.
And then you go home and you crash and you're sick again for another couple days, and then you
Yeah.
go do it again. But really take a day off from talking. That's also another thing that I've learned to do on Sundays if I'm overusing my voice. And I feel like it never usually, I'm pretty good about it, but it's actually freeing to go to the grocery store and go, I need apples or something. Like they always understand what you're talking about. And it's a good way to really save and heal your voice back.
That'd be good merch for you, Laurie. Like to have a T-shirt that says like, just don't like, I'm like, like don't talk to me. I'm saving. I'm a voiceover artist, or like I don't know. There's something in there. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, yeah. That's why it's virtual voiceover, right? It's gone. It's not in real life. Yeah.
Exactly. Before we finish, I don't know if there's any questions Eugene had, but I was sort of like, is there something that you would, I don't know, like a message to actors, something you'd like to let them know? One of the things that I do with some of the NYU grads is that what they're getting is different than what's actually happening today in the industry. Is there a message for actors, something you'd like to directly say to actors who may be thinking about voiceover, who are involved in voiceover acting, who are maybe not there yet? I don't know, just some sort of message to actors before we head off in a little bit.
I do. I think one of the biggest messages that I have is that there's a lot of times that some people may not be nice to you, or for their own reasons, or might discourage you from maybe taking on either acting or voiceover acting. And I've got two things to say about that. One is I always tell myself, or I always have, somebody's doing it, might as well be me. I know I'll show up. I know I work hard. I know I studied. It might as well be me. Why not? And the other thing, and this is a very big thing on criticism, because I do think that comes into play sometimes with our own self-criticism of our voice. A lot of people say, I just hate my voice. I keep listening. Okay, learn to love your voice. And that's only going to come from time of practicing. There was a time where, again, actually it was the Rayleigh's commercial that I got a year contract with. Another voiceover artist contacted me and said, was that your lispy voice that I heard? And she meant it in a very derogatory way. And it was something that I always had when I was younger. I always had I was insecure about that, about my voice and this and that. And it was a real learning moment. And this is what I'd like to share with people that are learning, that I thought, okay, I'm upset. It hit at that core, like we all have, we're humans. But what can I do about this? And how can I reframe this to myself and feel good about this? And what I came up with and what I told her is, well, if that lispy voice is what made you remember that commercial, yeah, I'm really proud. That is me.
That's beautiful.
Turn it around, because that is true, by the way. That is true. That people hired me for this voice. So whatever that voice is to you, let that be your guide. Don't listen to other people, and just really enjoy the process and have fun and celebrate all these weird things that are in your voice and the things that you can do.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
My other question for you is, is like, not for the podcast, like, what mic arm are you using? It's so good because it's not in the frame. It's like coming. I always have questions for Laurie, you guys, about her setup.
Oh.
It was like, you helped me with my setup during the pandemic, by the way, and thank you for that. You got some mic arm that comes up through the bottom of the frame. I like it because it's not in the frame.
2 seconds.
I
don't know if you can say what it is.
Well, I'm very nerdy, very, very studio nerdy. So just know that about me. No, I just kind of jerry-rigged it is what I call it, right?
Oh, cool.
So
okay.
It is just a regular arm, but it's on the side of a desk. and then
Oh,
it comes
great.
up underneath the desk, and then I sat it on the desk and on something else to make it angle this way.
Cool.
Now I have another one in my studio that's a different way. So I always, yeah, I can help you with that. I'll show you the whole
We'll
the whole
talk.
picture of it. Yeah,
We'll
I mean,
talk.
because it is important, and this is one way to, but this is another thing that you need to know is that the mic proximity, if I'm down here, might sound different than if I'm up here. So you have to really
wow.
play with it and know where you want it to go. Like typically, I would be over here.
Yeah.
For this particular podcast interview, I guess I'm here, but
Particular reason?
only that's what was comfortable for me.
Super. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just kind of ended up that way. But if I was going to record and there was, if I wanted a voice of God kind of thing and more bass, I would
Yeah.
probably be closer to the mic and lower down like this, where it's a little
Okay.
bit more bassy. Things like
This is
that.
goes under the category of like knowing your mic.
Knowing your mic. Yeah, this is a side
Yeah.
proximity of it, but yeah, knowing your mic.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So
You guys, Laurie is freaking awesome. Like if you are voiceover inclined, let's work with her. I have amazing friends and people I've referred for many years for accents and dialects but you guys, Laurie is the best of the best. And she's going to take care of your soul, and it's going to be fun. And the more to come, I would like to continue this conversation because you guys know us, we could nerd out on this forever. So, Laurie, thank you so much for taking some time with us today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
for
you,
hanging out
guys.
with us.
You're awesome. I want to hang out anytime with you guys. You are so much fun as well. So I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you.